Alright, hey everybody, it's like 7:30 now. Thanks for tuning in. So I did a really fun performance this last Friday with Tomio Ueda and for the Binary Society stage here at Subzerofest in San Jose, and Tomio was mainly doing drums and bass, and I was kind of handling melody and atmosphere and things like that, and the dual performance worked really well, and it was really fun. Mainly he sent a 16th note clock to me, and I synced my system to that, and then he handled all the rhythm. So imagine that happening in context with this patch. But before I tore this whole thing apart, I kind of want to break it down for a few people who asked me about it at the show, and I had quickly set everything up and closed the case, and never got a chance to. And it was a pretty fun patch. The whole performance was improvised, so this was all set up around improvising on the spot rather than some kind of set song or anything like that. So I just start to work through the different parts of the setup here. So there's mainly 4 voices, or I guess 5. We'll go from the right. The Telharmonic provides kind of a drone most of the time. Most of the time. What happened to the sound? Well, that's fun. Oh, there we go. Actually, let's start with the Morphagene, since that's why we couldn't hear anything. So the Morphagene has, it was mainly used for establishing some ambience and moving in and out, so I could play with the voices and blend between what I had looping in here. So there was 2 ways I was using it. At the start, I had nothing patched into the play jack, so it just continued to loop. It was stuff I just recorded with the OP1 into here that's in the same key as the oscillators. I think it was D. And then if I enable this gate here, it starts clocking a random voltage, which will randomly pick a different spot in the loop. And and give a little bit of motion. And then if I wanted to add more motion, turn on this other gate stream, and that starts to lock closer to the drums that Tomio would be starting to provide. So I could go kind of in between something that was more ethereal and something that was more locked to his rhythm. And the rest of the system is going into the Morphagene's input. So as I turn the mix control down, you would start to hear the other voices. So starting back with the first voice other than the Morphagene, the Telharmonic. Telharmonic is being processed through the audio damage shapes, just using that as a distortion to kind of give it more of like an electric guitar feel. And I would manually be playing with the centroid control to give it a little bit of movement. The ducking you hear is controlled by a negative envelope, which I can turn on and off here. And the degree is controlled by a couple steps here on the voltage block. Change it too often. And I'm using sort of key to this voice, we'll keep that going a little bit, is after it goes through shapes, goes into the Optimix, and then is mixed with the other voices. But the key trick sort of that I'm using here is I'm using the D-gate in. I'm not in the shift register mode that most people use the D-gate mode in. It's just the normal mode where if a cable's patched in here and there's no voltage present, no high voltage present, then the Telharmonic degree, which I'm using to control the pitch, will never change. So if I change the pitch of the sequence here, you never hear that updating. But the clock that I would be getting from Tomio is, I'm just using a Wogglebug clock here to simulate him. We go into the Integra Funcatus here, which is a logic gate where turning up these knobs, turning them this way since I put the module upside down, will increase the probability of a gate coming through. And I have that gate going to the D-gate input. So if I had the sequencer moving, we could hear the pitch of this voice going. I could turn up the probability that a new gate would come into the Telharmonic. It would sort of pick up the pitch and sound a lot like a chord shift. So it actually sounds like a chord progression when there's really just one pitch source driving the whole thing. And since they're tuned together, it always ends up staying in the same key. So that was a really fun trick with this, and I can separately control the probability of that Telharmonic voice picking up a new pitch. Or one thing I did a couple times in the performance was with this ducking active, I just had this turned all the way up and the sequencer was not running, and I was just manually playing this. So that was a fun way to have the Telharmonic add some sort of heft to the sounds I was making, as well as add some progression and motion if I wanted to. A lot of, the performance, I think I kept it kind of pinned to the low note and just kept it this sort of heavy guitar drone or pulsating thing with that pumping. And to get that pumping, that's just, I'm using the sum out of a maths into the control input of the Optimix for that Telharmonic. And this channel 3 is just sending an offset, and that envelope, if it's firing, is set full negative. So you're turning the volume all the way up, and that envelopes making it suck down. Okay, that's the Telharmonic voice. The next voice, if we sort of work our way this way, is the Cursus Teratas, which is a fantastic oscillator. I think center and the pitch range is being controlled by the voltage block. And the input is just going into one channel of the Optimix, where I have a gate here from the tempi striking that. Oh, this one. Oh wait, no, sorry. The gate output from the Integra Functus will trigger that. So if I turn up this channel, it's about a 50% probability of a 16th note triggering that sound. And if I change steps here on the voltage block, we get a different center position for the harmonics and a different octave range. I think it's actually 2 octave ranges. And a good thing might be to explain the voltage block is in clock mode, and the clock is, again, 16th notes that would be coming from Tomio, but going through the Integra Functus. So I can actually turn up channel 4 and get some probability that the voltage block will change stages. So if I turn it all the way up, I get lots of movement. So this is, with both of these channels all the way up, the Cursus is getting triggered, or the gate is gating the Cursus is getting triggered every 16th note, and the voltage block is moving every 16th note. So during the performance, if I wanted to add a lot of percussive motion, I could turn both of those up and get something like this. And I would frequently at some point hold a couple stages of the voltage block and get a little bit of pattern, a recognizable pattern going. So if we were building something up, maybe Tomio was working on a fill, or he was breaking things down and I wanted to build this up, I would do something like that. I was also using this voice a lot just as a solo voice. And its pitch is controlled from the Rene as well. So if I wanted to get a lot of motion going, I could have Rene moving. The voltage block moving and the triggering happening. The Rene is also being clocked by the 16th note clock from Tomio through the Integra Functus. So I could have Rene moving at the full every 16th note, or some semi-random probability of advancing. Gave it a little bit more natural movement, and also allowed it for me to easily stop it and just play it manually. The Integra Functus also has a cool button called Burn, which basically is like setting all the knobs full open. So I could manually play this and throw fills in there. Again, I tried to set this all up around improvising, so I had a lot of things that I could play with if I wanted to in whatever the moment was in the performance. Okay, so we went over the Telharmonic voice, the Cursus Teratas voice. Next would be, I guess let's talk about the Bimus Teratas. That is a percussive voice that initially I started building this whole patch with before, sort of in place of Tomio while I was working on the patch before we could practice. And then I ended up just sort of shifting the range up so that it would still play well with whatever drums he was doing. So I have a channel on the tempi that just triggers the Bimus. It's a relatively short decay, but a lot of that is modulated from the voltage block. So the pitch range, the algorithm, spread, morph, and decay are all being controlled, yes, all being controlled from the voltage block. So if I wanted to start something pretty serene, maybe I'll just manually play a couple of these stages. If find something that sounds good, and then just keep repeating it. And then at some point, again, I could turn up the clock here and start to get a little bit of movement. I think I remember during the performance to play with the attack a little bit and get some noisier hits. And then if I were to turn this up all the way, I'd get a lot more motion. And the cool thing with this is any of the ones that have a longer decay time, you can start to hear the motion across multiple steps. It's not just short percussive changes. And I did have several different clock setups in the Tempi programs, and I think I just completely spaced during the performance of actually playing with them. I mainly had them there to switch up to something different and also have something else to play with and modulate and be able to go back to. See, that's a pretty different sounding rhythm than the first one. But most of the rhythmic changes were happening by either me holding or playing gates manually or adjusting the probability output on the Integral Funkitus. Just the combination of turning that up and adding some clocking to the voltage block between the Bisimilus and the Cursus added lots of sort of motion and energy to the patch. And then just muting that mutes the Bisimilus. Okay, cool. So we did Telharmonic, Morphagene, Cursus, Bisimilus. So last but certainly not least is the two oscillators from the DPO make up the final couple voices that I was playing with. One is the final out of VCOB, and that is pretty much just another sort of percussive voice. I don't think I ever really opened this one up, but the stepped random generator from the Wogglebug is adjusting the decay time of the envelope on the maths. So what I could do is just have this steady sound if we were building something back up. Of course, I could play with the timbre. And I believe it's either the smooth or the woggle out is slightly modulating some of the mod bus going to these controls. So there's always a tiny bit of movement happening there. But then I could unmute this Tempi channel and start the random voltage generation. I'll start to get some random longer notes. And then if I really wanted it to get more extreme, I could just open the attenuator for that. But generally that was a single sort of percussive voice. And again, Renee's controlling the pitch of all the things here. So I can change the pitch of Renee and kind of move the whole patch up or down in frequency. And I think oscillator B is the one note that is tuned to G. Everything else is tuned to B. So by contrast, VCO A is, I think, about an octave up, tuned to D. And I was playing this in two ways. This was kind of the lead melody. Again, the pitch is all determined from Renee. So that 1 volt per octave signal is going to everything. It was providing the melody, a little bit of percussion here and there. But mainly I was using this control manually for the volume. There's a little bit of FM from VCOB that I could play with, which was really nice on the lower notes. But I just find the sawtooth wave just straight into an Optimix is just this beautiful, very emotive sound. So while I would have like a bunch of motion going in this patch, just sort of the Telharmonic's layered on top of that. So that ended up being one of the voices I played with the most and played the most. The Cursus was another one I could layer in there with it. And again, just by turning up the channel 4 here on the Integra and move that voltage block, that sort of lower voice gets the motion. But the DPO-A kind of can stand still and add, kind of accentuate the harmony there. It also just sounds really nice when this is clocked. So there's a lot of voices to play around with, layer, stack, pull out. And again, the main goal is to try and make it as easy to improvise, not only because that's what I like doing in a live performance, but I was going to be playing with someone else who's improvising, so it was vital that I could react quickly to whatever he was doing and vice versa. Yeah, it ended up being a really fun patch to play around with, not only to create and kind of mold and morph, but to literally play, just because there was so many different options. And I think a key part of that was the flexibility of Renee being able to clock it, not clock it, play it manually. The Integra Functus was huge, being able to add just a little bit of clocking through that probability to effectively muting the clocking, and to use it alongside tempi, where I could have a slower regular rhythm with tempi and a faster, more probabilistic rhythm through the Integra. And then the voltage block, which sort of came in to give me a little more voltage outputs from pressure points, just by manually selecting this. Once the Integra came in and I sort of connected the dots of having this fourth channel probabilistically clock the voltage block, changing steps, that sort of opened up a lot of things of controlling how much motion was happening. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. What time is it? Maybe I'll just sort of goof around and play it out for the next 5 minutes. Thanks for tuning in. If you came in halfway through, I will find out some way to save this video out and put it up on YouTube. Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Bye, everybody. Thanks. I will figure out how to get this up on YouTube if you missed most of it.